Throughout history, countless species have vanished from the face of the earth forever. Some fell victim to relentless overhunting, while others lost their natural habitats to human expansion. And then there were those that simply disappeared before scientists could ever fully understand them. But in many cases, the final chapter of these species was preserved in photographs, film footage, or audio recordings that somehow survived the passage of time. These records are so much more than just simple images. They represent the very last known moments of animals that would never be seen again. From birds that sang their final songs in the solitude of dense forests to incredibly rare mammals captured by camera lenses just before they faded into oblivion. Each and every record tells a story that is both fascinating and deeply melancholic at the same time. And what makes it all so intriguing is that not all of these cases are completely closed. Some of these creatures remain shrouded in mystery, surrounded by reports of possible sightings and heated debates about whether they might still be hiding out there in the most remote corners of the planet. And that is exactly what you are going to see here today. So go ahead, drop that like, hit the subscribe button down below, and let us dive right in. In 2018, a film crew was in complete shock when they captured footage of an animal that had already been believed to be extinct. The animal in question was the Zanzibar leopard, an extremely rare population of leopards that used to live on the island of Zanzibar off the coast of Tanzania. Adventurer and renowned biologist Forrest Galante set out on an expedition deep into the island's densest forests, searching for any proof that this feline still existed. After spending weeks setting up carefully planned camera traps and following reports from local residents, his team managed to record a large feline walking right in front of a hidden camera, surprising absolutely everyone involved. For many decades, the Zanzibar leopards were hunted down because of popular beliefs that associated them with witchcraft. Many of the inhabitants believed these animals were sent by witches to cause harm, which led to intensive hunting campaigns that almost completely eliminated the local population. The leopard had been considered officially extinct since the early 1990s, making this footage potentially one of the most surprising and nearly impossible discoveries in recent times. Despite the excitement, the scientific community remains cautious. Although the footage clearly shows a leopard, various experts in the field say we still don't have enough concrete evidence to confirm it's actually an authentic Zanzibar leopard, or whether a breeding population of the species still survives on the island. As of today, the mystery continues without a definitive or final conclusion. The pink-headed duck, one of the most mysterious birds in the entire world, was considered extinct for decades after completely disappearing from official records in the early part of the 20th century. This species once inhabited the wetland areas of India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, but the extensive destruction of its natural habitat and excessive hunting led to a rapid and severe population decline, with the last confirmed sighting of this remarkable bird in the wild dating all the way back to 1940. However, a major controversy erupted when the naturalist Tim Appleton, the founder of the internationally renowned bird fair, claimed to have spotted a pink-headed duck during an expedition into the remote regions of Myanmar. According to his detailed account, the bird displayed characteristics that were fully consistent with the long-lost species, reigniting hopes that it might still be surviving in areas that had remained largely unexplored. Nevertheless, this claim sparked intense debate among experts. Since no clear photographs, feathers, DNA samples, or any other form of conclusive physical evidence were obtained, the vast majority of scientists remained highly skeptical. Various subsequent expeditions were organized in an attempt to locate the bird, but none of them succeeded in confirming its continued existence. Even so, the case of the pink-headed duck continues to stand as one of the most fascinating examples of what are known as nature's Lazarus taxa, species that vanish for decades and then unexpectedly reappear. Although it is still officially treated as possibly extinct, some researchers believe that small populations could be surviving in isolated and hard-to-reach swamps across Southeast Asia, thereby keeping alive one of the greatest mysteries surrounding supposedly extinct birds. The Kawaii-o is one of the most emblematic extinct birds in modern history. Endemic to the island of Kauai in Hawaii, it was last seen in 1985, and its final known song was recorded in 1987. This species was the last living representative of the so-called Hawaiian honey-eaters, part of the Mohoidae family. With its extinction, that entire family vanished from the earth, making it the first complete bird family to go extinct in over 500 years. The Kawaii-o's decline was caused by a truly devastating combination of factors, including the destruction of its natural habitat, the introduction of invasive predators like rats and mongooses, as well as mosquito-borne diseases. Once abundant in the island's subtropical forests, the species suffered a drastic population reduction throughout the 20th century until it sadly disappeared entirely. The last audio recording of the bird became world famous for its absolutely melancholic quality. The capture features a male emitting his mating call, which would normally be answered by a female. Unfortunately, it's believed that no females remained alive at that time. That's why this audio is often described as one of the loneliest sounds ever recorded in nature, and its haunting emptiness gives it a deeply moving power that still captivates listeners today. The extinction of the Kauai did not just mean the loss of one single species, it meant the disappearance of an entire evolutionary lineage that had existed for millions of years. Its final song remains a powerful symbol of the consequences that human actions and invasive species can bring to island ecosystems. The creature known as the Thunderbird is one of the most legendary beings in North American folklore. Its origins come from the traditions of many different indigenous peoples across North America, who described a huge bird capable of creating thunder with the beating of its massive wings and lightning bolts from its eyes, a majestic beast that supposedly died off as the centuries passed. Over time, particularly from the late 1800s onward, reports began to surface of enormous birds seen flying in the skies over the United States and Canada. Some witnesses claimed they saw birds with wingspans so wide they darkened the sky as they passed, while others described animals that looked like oversized eagles or even prehistoric pterosaurs that survived into modern times. One of the most famous incidents happened in 1977 in Lawndale, Illinois, where a young boy alleged that a giant bird briefly picked him up and carried him before dropping him. A lot of the Thunderbird's fame also comes from a supposed photograph taken in 1890. According to legend, two cowboys shot and killed a gigantic winged creature in Arizona and posed next to it for a picture. Over the decades, thousands of people claimed they saw that image in books, magazines, or documentaries, but despite extensive searches, no authentic copy of that photo has ever been found. From a scientific standpoint, there's no concrete evidence the Thunderbird ever existed. No body, recent fossil, feather, or biological material has turned up to confirm any of those accounts. The most accepted explanations involve people misidentifying large birds like the California condor, plus simple perceptual exaggerations about size and distance. Although not recognized by science, the Thunderbird remains a popular subject of reports, legends, and debates even today, especially thanks to that elusive lost photo many swear they've seen but nobody has managed to track down. The Caribbean monk seal was a species native to the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. For centuries, it was heavily hunted for its blubber, skin, and meat, which led to the collapse of its population. The last confirmed sighting occurred in 1952 at Serenilla Bank between Jamaica and the Yucatan Peninsula. After decades without reliable records and an extensive review conducted by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the species was officially declared extinct in 2008. Even after the official extinction, occasional reports of possible sightings kept emerging. Fishermen, sailors, and residents of coastal regions in the Caribbean claim to have seen animals similar to the Caribbean monk seal, prompting researchers to investigate numerous reports over the years. However, none of them yielded conclusive evidence, such as clear photographs, biological samples, or an identifiable breeding population. In several cases, the supposed sightings were eventually attributed to other seal species that occasionally appear in the region. Recently, a video brought attention back to a man who was out on a boat trip with his family, showing animals swimming around a vessel. The person who recorded it believed he had captured individuals with characteristics similar to the extinct Caribbean monk seal and kept filming, hoping to document a reappearance of the species. Nevertheless, the quality of the footage and the distance from the animals prevented any definitive identification. Without additional evidence, the recording remains merely a curiosity and was not accepted by the scientific community as proof of the species' survival. And so, the story remains shrouded in mystery. Although occasional reports and videos keep alive the hope that some small group might have survived hidden in remote areas of the Caribbean, currently there is no scientific evidence capable of overturning the official conclusion. For science, the Caribbean monk seal remains extinct, considered the only seal species known to have disappeared directly due to human action. The Kupri is one of Southeast Asia's most mysterious animals. This absolutely enormous wild bovine once roamed the forests and savannas of Cambodia, along with parts of Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. Scientifically discovered only in 1937, it caught people's attention for its gigantic horns, especially those of the males whose tips were worn and frayed in a feature unique among all cattle. For many decades, the Kupri faced intense pressure from hunting. Its horns were prized as trophies and also used in traditional local medicine. Beyond that, wars, deforestation, and habitat loss devastated nearly all the remaining populations. Since the species was already naturally rare and incredibly difficult to find, its disappearance went largely unnoticed for a very long time. There is a famous video recording from the 1950s that shows a small group of Kupris walking through the forest. The footage was captured during an expedition led by zoologist Charles Wharton and represents some of the only known records of the species alive in its natural habitat. This material is often cited as one of the last reliable visual proofs of the animal. The International Union for Conservation of Nature currently considers the Kupri as critically endangered or possibly extinct because a body that officially confirms its extinction has never been found. However, decades of intensive searches have not uncovered any surviving population anywhere. Today, the Kupri is often compared to other ghosts of nature, species that may have already vanished completely, yet are still surrounded by persistent rumors and fragile hope. Despite some occasional reports of sightings in Cambodia's remote forests, no solid concrete evidence has emerged in recent years. The thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger or Tasmanian wolf, is probably the most famous extinct animal ever recorded on camera. Native to Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea, it was a carnivorous marsupial that had dark stripes along its back, which earned it the nickname of tiger. Despite its appearance being similar to a dog, it wasn't a canine but rather a marsupial, more closely related to kangaroos and koalas than to wolves. Human persecution was the main cause behind its disappearance. For decades, farmers believed that the animal attacked flocks of sheep, and the Tasmanian government even offered bounties for every specimen killed. Added to habitat loss and the possible spread of diseases, these factors unfortunately drove the species to total collapse. The most famous footage of the thylacine was taken at the Hobart Zoo in Tasmania back in 1935. The animal that was filmed became known as Benjamin. The images show the last known member of its species pacing around and observing its environment. Decades later, the video continues to amaze by allowing people to see in motion a creature that vanished less than a century ago. On September 7, 1936, Benjamin died at the zoo. It's believed that after spending a night exposed to criminal extreme cold outside his shelter. His death marked the end of the last known specimen of its kind. And sad irony, just a few months earlier, the Australian government had granted legal protection to the thylacine when it was already much too late to save it. Even after its extinction, the Tasmanian tiger became even more mysterious. Over the decades, hundreds of reports of supposed sightings emerged from remote and rugged areas of Tasmania and mainland Australia. Expeditions, camera traps, and thorough scientific searches were all carried out, but no conclusive evidence was ever found. Because of this, the thylacine is still officially recognized as extinct by the scientific community, even as it continues to be one of the most wildly sought-after lost species on the planet. The Mokele mbembe is one of the most famous creatures in cryptozoology and is often described as what many believe to be the last living dinosaur on Earth. According to accounts originating from the Congo Basin region in Central Africa, it would be a large animal with a robust body, a long neck, a long tail, and semi-aquatic habits, characteristics that strongly recall the ancient sauropod dinosaurs, such as the Apatosaurus or the Diplodocus. The oldest written accounts that are usually linked to the Mokele mbembe date back to the year 1776. In that year, the French missionary Abbé Lévin Bonaventure Proyart described enormous footprints found in a forest in Central Africa. Decades later, some researchers of mysterious creatures suggested that this could be one of the first historical records of the animal. The modern version of the creature gained strength in the early 20th century, when European explorers recorded stories told by local peoples about a huge animal that supposedly lived in rivers, swamps, and remote lakes of the Congo. Since then, countless expeditions have been organized to try to find evidence of its existence. Some witnesses claim to have seen the animal, while others reported footprints, strange sounds, or unusual movements in the water. Despite all this, no definitive proof has ever been obtained. From a scientific point of view, there is no evidence whatsoever that non-avian dinosaurs have survived to the present day. Paleontologists point out that these animals disappeared about 66 million years ago, and that there are no fossils or modern traces that indicate their survival. For this reason, most experts consider the Mokele Mbembe a combination of local folklore, misinterpretations of known animals, and accounts amplified over time. Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, is without a doubt the most famous creature in modern cryptozoology. It's described as a giant primate covered in thick hair, standing over 6.5 feet tall with an appearance that looks a lot like a gorilla. For centuries, it's been part of the folklore of various indigenous peoples in North America. The legend became especially popular in the United States and Canada, where thousands of people claim to have spotted the creature in remote forests. Lots of enthusiasts believe that Bigfoot could be an unknown species of primate or even a survivor from some prehistoric lineage. One of the most famous hypotheses links it to the prehistoric giant known as Gigantopithecus, an enormous primate that lived in Asia hundreds of thousands of years ago. However, there's absolutely no scientific evidence that this animal managed to survive into the present day or that it migrated to North America, so it's considered completely extinct. A huge part of Bigfoot's fame comes from photographs, footprints, and videos that have been circulating for decades. The most well-known case is the so-called Patterson-Gimlin film, which was shot in 1967 in California by Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. The images show a creature walking through the forest, and people are still debating it to this very day. For some people, it's the best evidence ever obtained of Bigfoot's existence. For others, it's just a very well-produced costume. In recent years, this debate has entered a whole new chapter. A documentary released in 2026 presented alleged rehearsal footage and testimonies, suggesting that the famous video from 1967 was staged. Even so, plenty of researchers and enthusiasts continue to challenge that conclusion, keeping the controversy very much alive. To this day, expeditions are regularly launched in search of any definitive proof of the creature's existence. Footprints, audio recordings, blurry photographs, and eyewitness accounts keep surfacing, yet no evidence has been able to convince the scientific community, which is why Bigfoot remains a modern-day legend. The quagga was an extinct subspecies of the plains zebra that lived in the arid regions of southern Africa. It had a truly unique appearance that set it apart from every other zebra, since its dark stripes were mainly present on the head, neck, and front part of the body, while the rear area showed a uniform brown coloration. This unusual characteristic led scientists to believe for a long time that the quagga was a separate species, until genetic studies revealed it was actually a subspecies of the plains zebra. The extinction of the quagga happened mainly because of the intense hunting promoted by European settlers in South Africa. The animals were killed for their meat and hide, and they were also seen as competitors for grazing land with domestic livestock. Within just a few decades, the population collapsed and disappeared quickly from the wild. The last known wild specimen was shot in 1878. A few years later, on August 12, 1883, the last known captive quagga died, a female kept at the Natura Artis Magistra Zoo in Amsterdam. At the time, no one realized she was the last individual of the subspecies, and her death officially marked the definitive disappearance of the quagga. Among the most valuable records of the species is a rare photograph taken by Frederick York in 1870 at what was then the Zoological Society of London. The image shows a living quagga at the London Zoo and is considered one of the most important photographs of an extinct animal. Since there are very few visual records of the species, this photograph became a fundamental historical piece for understanding its real appearance. The quagga story also has a curious chapter. In 1987, the so-called Quagga Project was started, a program that uses plain zebras with reduced stripe patterns to try to reproduce physical characteristics similar to those of the original quagga. Although the resulting animals are not true quaggas, the project seeks to recover part of the lost appearance of this iconic zebra that disappeared more than a century ago. Despite the fact that we will never see a real living quagga again, this project does offer a glimpse into what might have been, and it helps keep the memory of this remarkable animal alive in the public eye. The saola is one of the rarest and most mysterious mammals on the entire planet. Known as the Asian unicorn, it was only discovered by modern science in the tragic year of 1992, when researchers came across unusual skulls and horns in remote villages of Laos. This discovery was considered one of the most significant moments in zoology during the 20th century, since it revealed the existence of a large mammal, completely unknown to science, in the middle of our modern world. The species inhabits the extremely dense forests of the Annamite mountain range, which stretches between Laos and Vietnam. Incredibly shy and highly elusive, the saola is very rarely seen by human beings at all. In fact, no scientist has ever managed to observe a living saola in its natural habitat for any extended period, and almost everything we know about its behavior comes from occasional records, remote camera traps, and local reports from villagers. Physically, it resembles a unique mix of antelope, cattle, and deer. Both males and females possess long parallel horns that can exceed 50 centimeters in total length. Despite its nickname as the Asian unicorn, it has no relation whatsoever to that mythological creature. The name emerged purely due to its extreme rarity and the fact it remained almost completely invisible to science for so long. The saola is currently considered a critically endangered species facing extinction. The main threat is not direct hunting, but rather the thousands of snares installed throughout the forest to capture other animals. Many saolas end up dying accidentally while caught in these hunting traps. Habitat destruction also significantly contributes to its steady decline. The most striking thing is that nobody knows exactly how many saolas still remain alive out there. Estimates suggest the population could be extremely small, possibly composed of just a few dozen or a few hundred individuals scattered across very remote areas. Since sightings are incredibly rare, every single new photograph obtained by camera traps is treated as a major event for the conservation of this species. Because of this, the saola occupies a truly unique position among all endangered animals. After all, it is not considered officially extinct, but it remains so rare that it is often called the ghost of the Asian forests. Don't forget to subscribe to watch more videos like this one.